for the people that don't know me, I'm Olaf. I'm a third-year Atlas student, and it's a bit too short. Ah, yes, better. And yeah, I will be talking today about the presence of constructivism in Atlas itself, and whether there are things that we could improve upon. What are the good things that we want to preserve? Because believe me, there are things that are very good in this program and that we really should be proud of compared to other programs. But there might also be a few things, for example, mentoring, what was already discussed, that we might be able to improve upon. So, if we look at the case UCT Atlas, what are we doing here mainly? What are things that we can really differentiate from ourselves? And one thing that I think that is really standing out for our program is the fact that we're working with semester projects. And these take different shapes: project-based learnings, problem-based learning, challenge-based learning. And well, problem-based learning is mainly the tackling of a certain specific problem, working it out and seeing what will happen. Project-based learning goes a bit further, sees how things are built up, and helps to understand what are more the deeply interconnected roots of the problem and try to mitigate those. We can also see these in, for example, the later semester projects, where we are tackling bigger and more wicked problems. And challenge-based learning is a thing that is kind of new. It's a kind of new, well, scholarly learning technique that is being applied, especially right now in the semester 2 project, where external experts in their field, CEOs of businesses, are being attracted to help the students form their own image about the problem, give a scope to this problem and redefine, okay, well, this is how it actually works. And of course, literature is amazing, but literature is just paper, and sometimes it's very nice written down and all the models, but as we all know, sometimes the real world doesn't follow models or is limited or are, well, more or less just wrong in certain cases, especially with the developments that we have today. Furthermore, what we have in Atlas is just working together, working in groups, working in the projects, of course, but also in other courses. We often have to work in groups to tackle a problem, a specific concept, or just construct whatever we think of the problem, the concept, and give presentations about it, lecture each other, learn by doing, learn by teaching each other. And this is where the bridge to constructivism comes in. Of course, there's two types of mainline constructivism. We all know Vygotsky, we all know Piaget, we have all read about them, we've all learned about them. Marijn already gave a very good explanation, I think, about the theories of Vygotsky, with the more knowledgeable other helping a specific student or person get to a certain point that is within their zone of approximate development, which is defined as, well, the zone that, with a little help, a student can actually achieve. Most often it's being portrayed as some kind of beach, where students can stand in the shallow water by themselves with the knowledge that they have, and they can kind of swim in around the more deeper waters, but they will drown as soon as they go by the safety line. And for that they need this more knowledgeable other to, well, help them swim, basically. And this is something that is really interesting to see in the fact that we can also see this happening in Atlas. There is a lot of things that are kind of there, kind of not there, and there's two different sides to this debate. There are teachers that always say, okay, we'll throw them in the deep end, see if they can swim, and then we'll throw them, well, the safety precautions that they need to actually swim. There's also teachers that have this mentality of this philosophy of it should just itch. It should just be outside your reach, and you should be incentivized to reach out and try to grasp that knowledge and to make it your own in order to understand it. The concept of constructivism is, of course, to construct knowledge. You have to build it. It's not necessarily what sometimes happens in other programs. You learn the equations, you make the test, and you can ignore air resistance all the time, and then suddenly, when you have to build a bridge, oh, there's a lot of wind, the bridge collapses. No, it is, you have to construct it, you have to make sense of it, you have to apply it in different situations, because, well, that is the real world. There's always things that will be different, that will be tackled differently. And especially in understanding these concepts, and these concepts that have to be taught to the students, they have to be put into context with other concepts, because a concept on itself doesn't make any sense without the context of which is it in. If I say air resistance, it can mean a whole lot of different things. But if you say air resistance on a bridge or on a car, it has severely distinct differences of how rigid a car should be, how rigid a bridge should be, and of course, a car moves on its own and a bridge really, really shouldn't. What we can, of course, there's also the cognitive side, which we see here in the UT and in education in general. There is this concept of you have to study and you have to have an introduction. And I think, in my personal opinion, that it's a good way. You can't just expect to tell a student air resistance and that the student goes, ah, okay, sure. And he understands everything. You have to work with it. You have to build your understanding of it from working with, for example, other students, other exercises, so that you can place it into a context and be able to replicate it into different situations and other situations. And this brings us, of course, to what is happening in Atlas itself. We have the semester project in which we work with groups. We are working with each other. We are being introduced to a problem or a project, or, for example, Mars colonization. You have to dive deep into the literature to try to make sense of all the weird words that are being used there. Take Mars colonization. You have to build a rocket. And in this case, it's actual rocket science and just as hard as rocket science. You have to try to make sense of it, and the only way you can do it is, yes, by studying the concepts, but then in order to use it in your own project work and in order to mitigate these problems, in order to, well, hope to work towards a solution, you have to talk to each other. You have to test each other, and you have to help each other in order to understand these concepts, build upon them, and thereby constructing the knowledge that you need in order to somewhat formulate a reasonable solution to said problem. It's also very important, of course, that students should be active. They should be learning. They should be doing things hands-on. That's what we also do in the projects and in the program itself. We do a lot of presentations. We don't do grade. We pride ourselves for not doing grades, for barely doing any tests. It's not useful. What is useful is creating results, is creating these presentations in where you can teach each other, show that you really mastered the subject and that you understand the deeper roots in which it is connected into the deeper world, and not just, the mathematic equation for this situation is equal to this, and you just plug in the numbers. Sometimes you don't have the numbers. You have to find them. And that's where the real research work is coming in. You can't just build upon others to do all the work for you. Sometimes you have to do it yourself, especially as a researcher. And in these groups as well, you have to build this concept yourself and show that you actually understand it and be able to replicate it to different situations. And in our assessment way, present it to others in order to show that you understand it and hopefully that they can take away something from it. There's the same thing that is of course happening here at the Symposium. We have different concepts, such as scaffolding, that are being explained, interpreted, and sometimes even solutions are proposed in order to give us all this little bit of information that we can think about, then build upon ourselves, give it our own thought, create it on our own thought, and then formulate our own opinion about it. And maybe, just maybe, if we formulated it well enough or made it make sense to ourselves, we can inspire other people so that in the end, well, and this all really connects well to all the other presentation, we have this global outreach so that we can learn from each other, that we can present to each other. And yes, the teacher spirit is of course very important in this. There is this more knowledgeable other. We cannot expect to just know everything, or that Wikipedia knows everything, or the literature knows everything. We need the teachers to be able to introduce us to a subject, to basically take us by the hand and not necessarily throw us into the water, but walk in the water with us so that we can swim together, that we can eventually, the teacher can walk back to shore and just sit in the sun or something, and we can swim into these deep waters of knowledge that we are able to swim in ourselves based on the knowledge that we've constructed by going from the beach into the water, having these basic concepts introduced to us, and then work with it in order to delve deeper into this vast sea of knowledge that we all pursue. Because we're Atlas students, especially in Atlas, we're curious, we're critical, very critical. We're striving for, well, excellence. It's one of our intended learning outcomes. And you can also see in these intended learning outcomes of the program that there's this connection between cognitive and constructivist learning and educational philosophies. Cognitive in the sense that we should be proficient in at least one social science subject and one engineering subject. And in order to do this, we have to, of course, learn the formulas, learn the concepts, learn the psychological theories. We just have to. But then there's also the learning outcome of being able to present it well, to be able to communicate it well, and to, well, make sure that not only people that are hyper-specialized in the specific subject are able to understand it, but that if, for example, my grandma would be watching now, she would be like, oh, that makes sense, this is very interesting, and I actually would like to delve into this a bit further. And based on this, we can spark this discussion. And the teachers have a really important role in this, and in my personal opinion, they formulated really well in helping these students reach their goals, formulating their courses in such a way that we first get introduced to a basic subject, and then have to delve deeper into a subject ourselves, try to connect these concepts that we learned to the subject that we chose ourselves, and then show how it's all, well, where the connection is to the real world, and show our peers by clear communication, presentations, and sometimes even some kind of literature club or a symposium. And last, group work. It is just the crème de la crème of Atlas. It is what we do, it is what we love, and of course, especially in today's day and age, you just have to work together with each other, because yes, you can't just know everything. And working in groups is a strategy to make sure to not only alleviate the work that you have to do to yourself. Rome wasn't built in one day, and neither can we change the entirety of society in one day. And therefore we need teams to make sure that the right knowledge is in the right places. And sometimes, yeah, the cognitive approach has still the overhand on the educational systems in this moment. But we can also see a shift. There are projects introduced into other programs. For example, biomedical engineering has now semester or module projects in which they, for example, do conceptual modeling. Not only saying, oh, this is the formula and we just fill it in and we have the numbers. No, why is this the formula? How is this situation explained? What is the concept that we see and how do we connect it to this real world achievement? And if we continue this, not only will Atlas be the trailblazer that it always was, and will it kind of fulfill the brewing pot of different teaching methods that it will, but in this way Atlas will be able to provide different teaching techniques to other educational programs so that we can all grow and build a new educational system together.